Hello and a very warm welcome to this latest edition of Talking Germany, the show where we do just that. My guest today is a man whose story is truly shocking. He is a former neo-Nazi who, when he was just 17 years old, beat a man so badly that he died of his injuries. Now, after that, he spent a number of years in prison, during which time he became a Christian and started a new life. And here he is, Johannes Kneifel. Johannes, thank you very much for joining me today here on Talking Germany. Welcome. Now, when I say that Johannes Kneifel started a new life, what I mean is that he studied theology and went on to become a church pastor. Now, many people are impressed by the road that he has gone down, by the remorse that he has shown. Some, though, are not convinced by his apparent change of heart. Johannes, when you sit opposite me and you hear me telling a television audience about the crime that you committed, how painful is it for you? Is it painful for you?
It is a little bit painful because it means that when you look at me, you still see my past, and I'm still the person for you that beaten up a man and he died, and you don't see the man I am today 100%, and there's still a shadow of a past, and that's painful because I want people to see me like I am today. And
tell me the difference. I mean, the events were many years ago. You were 17, obviously, back then. You spent many years in prison. What's the difference between the 17-year-old that you were then and the person you are now?
I was a searching person when I was 17. I was searching for my way to life. I was searching for values I can build my life up on. And
excuse me, that makes you sound though almost like an idealist.
I was an idealist.
But you were a very angry idealist.
Oh yeah, I was.
Is that the combination? Is that perhaps who you were?
It was a part of who I was. And a very important part was that I was a fighting person. I grew up and life always was a struggle, and I had enemies, and I had many fights to fight, and so I learned that life is dangerous, and to stay alive, you must be hard, you must be strong. And I try to be. I try to be hard, I try to be strong, I try to be a good friend to my friends, and I did it.
You had the wrong friends. You had the wrong friends, perhaps.
I had the wrong friends, but I had no other friends, and so nobody can live for his own. And they were my only friends, and so that was the way I lived.
It's interesting listening to what you say, and it's a very complicated, very complex series of events. One aspect of your story is that you now have a second chance. Do you believe, why do you believe that you deserve a second chance?
Everybody deserves it because we all are humans. We all make mistakes, and we all need the chances to learn from the mistakes and to make a new beginning. And everybody wants it for himself, but we have problems to give others the same chance that we want for ourselves, and so everybody should look at himself, and nobody can live his life without second chances, and so we all should give this a second or third or fourth chances to others.
Okay, Johannes, thank you for those first thoughts. We've clearly got an awful lot to talk about. Those were your first impressions of Johannes Kneifel. Here's more.
Johannes Kneifel says he's seen the light. Today he's a pastor and leads a Free Baptist congregation in the Erzgebirge region of eastern Germany. He says his life was once dark, brutal, and fractured, but he's put that behind him now. His world at age 17 was Germany's radical neo-Nazi scene. Johannes Kneifel was a staunch skinhead. He referred to his mother, who had multiple sclerosis, as a cripple and called his blind father a loser. In boarding school, he led a double life. During the day, Johannes was a bright, well-behaved pupil. Evenings and at the weekends, he was a racist. Hatred of foreigners dominated his worldview back then. The former headmaster at the boarding school recalls how Johannes Kneifel drifted into the neo-Nazi scene.
Ich bin mir sicher, dass Johannes,
I'm certain that Johannes fell in with the wrong group of
die
friends.
falschen Freunde
They
hatte,
could manipulate
die
him
ihn
more
stärker
powerfully than we were
manipulieren
able to
konnten,
direct him.
als wir ihn führen konnten.
One friend, called Marco S., became a role model for Kneifel. With and for him, Kneifel became a skinhead and a criminal. In August 1999, the two broke into this house where Peter Deutschmann was living. Locally known as Hippie, he was one of the few people brave enough to stand up to the militant extremists and paid for it with his life. Johannes Kneifel was sentenced to 5 years in Germany's largest juvenile prison on charges of assault and battery resulting in death. Even the psychologists gave up on him. They testified he was incorrigible. While in jail, he encountered foreigners. At first there were fights, then later, reflection. Prison chaplain Dieter Kurks was there when Kneifel renounced the radical right and began to attend church services. He's convinced that Kneifel's change of heart was genuine.
From the beginning, Johannes was someone who could never get over his guilt, and that's what prompted him to start asking some serious questions.
Years later, Johannes Kneifel visited the anonymous grave of his victim. He said it was a confrontation with his own guilt and the start of a new life. Kneifel joined a free church and read the Bible instead of neo-Nazi propaganda. He decided to become a pastor and wrote term papers and did pastoral internships as a theology student. He also recorded his story in a book. He says it's a painful reckoning with himself. But critics say Kneifel is merely grandstanding at his victim's expense. He has experienced the depths and a new beginning. And today, he's our guest on Talking Germany, Johannes Kneifel.
Johannes Kneifel, I think we should begin at the end of that report and then go back to somewhere near the beginning. You've written this book about your own experiences. You come on television shows like this one, yeah. And some people, we heard it at the end of the report, say that's distasteful. They say they accuse you of drawing attention to yourself. What do you say to those people?
Most people are a minority. They are very loud and aggressive in saying their opinion, but there are only few, and 99% or more are glad that I do the way I do, and they are thankful for the things I tell them, and several people changed their lives because they heard of my story, and so I give our society a lot, and that's the way I do, and I don't have only friends, and someone doesn't like me, it's the way life is. Someone doesn't like your work, and so it's with me. And we should not concentrate on those minorities.
Let's go back in time to your very early days when you were a real youngster, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You've said yourself you had a terrible childhood. We got a couple of impressions from it there. Tell us about your childhood in your own words.
I was a lost child, and
you were a lost child.
I felt lost. I felt like a stranger. I was very shy.
Did you have
I was fearful, and I did feel loved. I didn't feel worthy, and so.
Did you have people you could talk to?
No, I didn't.
What about in your family? I mean, you had problems with your parents, but what about brother, sister?
In our family, there was so much problems that nobody was able to talk about the problems, and our parents didn't talk to us about their problems, and I didn't learn that I could talk about my problems, and so the only friends I had were also children out of difficult families, and it was good for us because we didn't have to talk about our parents. We were ashamed of. And
you're talking about other people here all the time, about what other people gave you or didn't give you. You could have done things differently as well. I mean, you were, we heard in the report that you were very cruel to your parents. You said to your mother she was handicapped, your father wasn't good enough, you scorned him.
I didn't learn empathy, and so I saw all the problems. Maybe I felt the problems, but they were too hard, and so I closed the door to my heart or something else. And
why, given all that you are telling me, did you drift into the skinhead scene, into the far right scene? Because that wasn't. My sense is that that's not a place that would give you, love.
It wasn't love, but it was a community. A brotherhood or something. They gave me a feeling. They were my friends, and they also gave me solutions for problems I saw. The solutions didn't work, but I hoped.
But why did you believe in all this? Because I mean, you're a very bright guy. You're a very intelligent guy, and you're in circles where there are people who've got very simple, formulaic answers to the problems that the world presents. Why did you buy into that?
One point, the people that I called my friends. They lived their life with their thoughts and everything in life. They lived their ideology, and I didn't know some other people living their lives such radical, and that fascinated me. The other thing was. I felt very, very small, and I thought that, like in the great German under Adolf Hitler, Germany was fighting and what was getting greater and greater and ruled, dominated Europe, almost the world.
But again, you're an intelligent guy. You knew that terrible things had happened in Nazi Germany. You knew that millions of people had suffered and been killed.
I knew it, but I thought everything has its price, and I thought it could.
So at the time, it wasn't just about guys being together and bonding and being friends. It was you were effectively a racist. You were an anti-Semite.
I was, and I think it is easy to give other people the guilt of problems and Feindbild.
To have an enemy, to create, to see somebody as an enemy, to make your life easier.
I had many problems I couldn't grasp, and so I had an enemy I could fight against.
You could blame.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've heard about the neo-Nazi scene that Johannes Kneifel got involved in the state of Lower Saxony in Western Germany. Let's now move to Eastern Germany, where there are, in some areas, worrying concentrations of right-wing extremism, such as in the town of Spremberg, which lies about 150 kilometres southeast of Berlin. Johannes, you are somebody who knows about the kind of problems that we're talking about here from the inside and from the outside a lot. I know you've thought about these things an awful lot. The mayor of Spremberg has no idea how to deal with the problem that she's confronted with. Do you have a suggestion of any kind?
Yeah, the problem is that she sits on her table and in her building, and the young people, the extremists on the streets, and we didn't find together. And it's very important that we see us as human beings living in the same town, and that we communicate with one another and listen and talking to the others. And there are problems in this town, and she has to listen about the problems, but she also has to talk to the people, to the radical people too. And very important point, young people, young men need role models. And in the context that they live, there are only a few role models, and the male role models they find often are criminal, are extremists, and so they live a way that they tell them. And so it's very important that normal men go to the young men and show them that they can live another way. And so teachers or normal workers, every man is asked to go to a young man and show them how they do their lives and what values they have in their lives. And they should lead by example, and it's very important.
You too live in Eastern Germany. Are you, on a day-to-day basis, are you confronted? Do you see the same kind of problems around you? Are you involved in a process where you too could possibly be a role model or somebody involved in a dialogue?
I try to be a role model, and I try to be present, but one man is not enough, and there's need for more to do that. But I don't want to look away when I see problems, and I want to talk to young men when I see them, and when I see it they are aggressive or violent. And it's important not to look away, and to go to the persons and to tell them in which direction the way of life will lead, and to show them that their life can be another way when we want. And
one thing that you have done, and in that sense you have been a role model to an extent, is that you have broken away from the far-right scene. Have there been, have you come under pressure? Physically or in terms of, I don't know what...
Not physically.
Not physically, but...
Yeah, there are pages in the internet will write about me, and but
what do they say?
Yeah, concluding that I wouldn't live and do the way I do if we were ruling Germany. But it's about fear, and I want to make people fearing them, and if they can do so when they are successful, but I don't have fear from anybody, and and so I live my way because it's the right thing, and I do so.
One contribution you made was by writing the book. Have you got any indication whatsoever that people in the young men, young women in the right-wing scene have actually read your book?
I don't know if some of them did read it. I hope so. At least they heard about my story, and they can think about it. They have a possibility to read the book or to see this film. So they are responsible for their lives, and I can tell them it's the wrong way and they should turn around and start a new life, but they have to do so. And when they want, I could try to help them, but it's their decision.
Okay. With young criminals, there are two things you can do. You can speak to them and you can help them, or you can punish them. And one special provision of German law is called Jugendarrest, juvenile detention. It's a kind of short, sharp shock. Young offenders spend maybe a weekend, maybe a week or two, but no longer than 4 weeks in prison. The idea is to give them a foretaste of just how miserable their lives inside prison will be if they continue to commit crimes. Johannes Kneifel, I wonder what you were thinking while you were watching that report.
It is a pedagogical instrument, and it doesn't work. And
it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work?
Because it's not about punishment. It's about teaching and education, and you can punish young people as hard as you want. That won't make them better people. You have help them develop their skills and teach them the right values and teach them social skills.
But for some people that would sound like rewarding young people for the crimes that they have committed, making it too easy for them.
I don't see it this way because people who are ending in jail, we had a much harder life than other people, mostly. There are some examples, but most of young inmates had very much problems in their young lives, and so it's not rewarding. It's equal all the problems that they had and still have, and the society has the task to equal the problems and to give input to those young men.
It's interesting, in your book, at the beginning of your book, there's a dedication for the people who had stood by you despite everything. And I wonder, because you're talking about the educational impacts that prison life can have on you, that can take place during a time when you're in prison. Was there somebody in prison, on prison staff, who actually stood by you, who actually was a role model for you?
I had a teacher in my class in my education who was like a father for me, and it was very important because he showed me a perspective I didn't have before, and he was there for me, and that was very, very important. And he said to me one time that I'm like a son that he never had, and that was very, very important for me, because I never heard such a sentence from my dad, and so it was great, and it helped me a lot to feel loved and to feel that there are people who are interested in my life and who wanted to help me make the best of my life. And so it was also a motivation for me not to disappoint those people.
Sure. A big step forward. I think another lesson that you had when you were in prison was that, I mean, you said yourself you had racist views when you were a teenager, and then there you were in prison, sharing your immediate environment with people from immigrant communities and possibly foreigners as well. Certainly people from a very different cultural background from yourself. What did you learn there?
They were the first people I met that gave me a second chance, and it was very important. And they became the best friends I had in my entire life. And they welcomed me like a family member, like a brother. And also I was a racist when I get to prison, and that helped me to start a new life, and it was very important. And also our life in prison is very grey and boring, and the multicultural friendships I had, they brought colors in that life, and they helped me to fill the time with new experiences, and that was very important. I was afraid foreign people when I get to prison, and I learned that foreigners are no threat, but they are an enrichment.
The third important experience you had when you were in prison is that you became a Christian. How did that come about?
It came because they were people. They showed me that I am a creature by God, and I am loved by God, and Jesus died at the cross for me and my sins. And finally, I made an experience that the God they were talking about is still alive and is talking by himself to me, and that he really forgives me my sins and wants to start a new life with me. And it was a great spiritual experience, and that changed my heart, and it helped me to start a new life.
A very interesting report. Tell us about how that community that we were just hearing about there compares with your community. Is your community also shrinking?
Yes, it's a small community, but it is like the days of our old church. Christianity wasn't a major movement, and it started small and it got larger and bigger and reach the people. And so it's our task today. We are a small group, and we have to reach the people, tell them about Jesus, bring them the gospel. And I'm convinced that people's life will change when they met Jesus and make spiritual experiences, and much things, wonders, miracles can happen.
And one way that you're making a contribution, we ask people to bring people along sort of cherished personal possessions. This is what you've chosen to bring along today. It's a songbook from from an adventure camp that you've been involved in. I think that's what I would call it, yeah? Just tell us a little bit about why it's so important to you.
It's important for me because I told you I was a lost child, and the children they come to are lost children too, and their parents are in prisons, and so they have much difficulties, familiar and social, and with all the shame when father or mother or both are in prison, and poverty and violence, and they don't live a childhood they should. Mm-hmm. And so we give them 1 or 2 times a year the chance to be a child and to have fun and to be loved and to sing songs. Many of them didn't sing songs before, and it's great to see in a few days that young people they have no good words when they come, and they change in some days, and they begin to laugh and to sing and to build friendships, and it's such an important work to give that young people love. And it's not much. It's only 1 week or 2 weeks a year, but I think it makes a difference in their lives. And
it's clearly, I mean, it's a great contribution that you're making there, a significant contribution. What you're talking about is giving people a chance, possibly giving people a second chance. And the theme of our conversation is that you've been given a second chance yourself, which I think is a very good thing. One person who's not willing to give you a second chance is the daughter.
Not yet, but maybe someday. We are young, and it takes time to forgive, and it takes times that wounds will heal, and I hope and I pray that the day will come. But today it hasn't come.
That's a painful thing for you, isn't it?
Yeah,
we talked about pain at the beginning of the program.
It's painful, but we live on earth and not in heaven, and so we have to endure pain. It's part of our life.
I'd like to ask you one more personal question, Johannes. I think you've been fortunate enough in recent years to have experienced love being given to you by other people, other adult people. Have you been capable of giving love back?
Yeah, and it's a great thing to do so. And I know it when I stand before a person and I see fear or pain in their eyes. And in the recent years, I stood before many persons and I saw thankfulness and joy in their eyes because they were meeting me, and I gave them my words or my experiences or my feelings, and I helped people, and that's great. And it's a good thing to be loved, but to love too also.
We're going to have to leave it there on those words, Johannes. That is all the time we have on today's show. My guest has been Johannes Kneifel, who committed a terrible crime as a young man but has been given a second chance. Bye-bye.